All right, let's open the case file on what has to be one of modern cinema's biggest head-scratchers, Tim Burton's 2012 movie, Dark Shadows. I mean, think about it. It had a legendary director, a cast full of stars, and it was based on this super beloved TV show. It had everything going for it. So how did it go so wrong?
And, this question from a fan forum, it just nails it. It gets right to the heart of what we're talking about today. It perfectly captures that collective, that greeted the film when it came out. This was a movie that left pretty much everyone completely and utterly baffled.
Okay, so let's get into it. Let's really unpack how a movie with all this star power could end up being such a legendary, famous misfire.
First up, our first piece of evidence has to be the plot. Or, well, maybe I should say the lack of a coherent plot. It's really just this jumble of chaotic storylines that had audiences and critics feeling totally lost.
I mean, people left the theater with a whole laundry list of what just happened moments. The whole movie is just packed with these bizarre, unexplained things. Why is there a ghost and her identical living double? How does a main character just suddenly become a werewolf with absolutely no warning? And the villain's immortality? Yeah, don't expect an explanation for that. It just all felt completely out of nowhere.
Think about it. The script was trying to juggle way too many things at once. You've got your 18th century vampire, the 70s culture shock, a fishing company rivalry, a drunk psychiatrist, and a whole bunch of other supernatural creatures. It's like they threw everything into a blender, and that's a huge reason why the whole thing just feels so broken and disjointed.
All right, so next, let's hear from the witnesses. We've got two key groups here, the critics, and maybe even more importantly, the fans of the original show.
Yeah, the critics did not hold back. The response was just brutal. I mean, one reviewer gave it 1.5 stars, and they basically said the biggest crime here was getting such a great cast together and then just completely wasting their talent. Ouch.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Both the critics and the fans agreed on one thing. The movie was a total mess. But why they thought it was a mess, that's a little different. For the critics, it was just a poorly made film, structurally a failure. But for the fans, man, it felt personal. It felt like a cheap imitation that completely missed the heart and soul of the original.
And this quote right here, it just sums up all that fan heartbreak. See, everyone knew that Tim Burton and Johnny Depp were huge fans of the original show, so people went in expecting this loving tribute. But what they got instead felt like a joke, like a silly parody that was making fun of the very thing they claimed to love.
So, to really get why fans felt so betrayed, we need to go back in time. We have to ask, what was the original Dark Shadows anyway?
Okay, so the original show was a huge deal, a real pop culture phenomenon. It started back in '66 as this super serious, melodramatic, Gothic soap opera. But then they introduced the vampire Barnabas Collins, and ratings just went through the roof, especially with younger audiences. By 1969, it was a ratings juggernaut for ABC. And let's be crystal clear, this was not a comedy.
It wasn't just the tone they changed, though. They totally twisted these beloved characters into something unrecognizable. Dr. Julia Hoffman, she goes from being this brilliant scientist to, well, a drunk who just wants to steal vampire blood for herself. Carolyn Stoddard, the rebellious teen, suddenly she's a werewolf out of nowhere, right at the climax. And Barnabas, the brooding, tragic hero of the series, he got turned into a punchline, a fish-out-of-water joke. For the fans, this was just unforgivable.
But what if we've been looking at this all wrong? What if it was never meant to be a tribute in the first place? This is where our little investigation takes a fascinating turn, because some folks have a theory that the movie had a totally different mission, one that almost everyone missed.
So the big theory is this. Tim Burton wasn't actually trying to adapt Dark Shadows. He was making a postmodern Gothic parody. In other words, he was using the idea of Dark Shadows to kind of poke fun at the entire Gothic genre. The stuffy heroes, the spooky mansions, all of it. It's this idea of subversive mimicry, imitating something in order to gently mock it.
And when you look at it that way, suddenly all those weird random choices start to click into place, right? They're not mistakes, they're jokes. The terrifying vampire is now this uptight, totally clueless guy. The creepy secret passage? Oh, that just leads to some badminton rackets. It's all about messing with what you think a Gothic story is supposed to be.
And this kind of humor, this culture clash, is really the heart of the whole parody.
You take this super dramatic 18th century vampire and you drop him right into the middle of the groovy, laid-back 1970s. The humor comes from that collision, right? It's constantly taking the classic, serious vampire and showing how ridiculous he seems in this modern world.
Okay, so we've laid out all the evidence. It's time for the verdict. What really happened here? Was this just a terrible adaptation, or was it a clever parody that just went over everyone's heads?
Well, the truth seems to be, it was a perfect storm of failure. You had the fans, who wanted a serious, faithful tribute. You had the studio, which wanted a big, goofy summer comedy. And then you had Tim Burton, who wanted to make this artsy, postmodern parody. The script was being pulled in 3 different directions at once. There's just no way it could hold together.
And the result? A movie that ended up pleasing, well, pretty much nobody. It was too silly for horror fans, it was way too bizarre for comedy fans, and for the original fans, it felt like a straight-up insult. By trying to be everything to everyone, it ended up being nothing for anyone.
And all of this really leaves us with a much bigger question, one that's about more than just this one movie. When you adapt something that people absolutely love, what's your job as a creator? Is it to give the fans exactly what they want, a faithful homage, or do you have the right to completely reinvent it, to make it your own, even if it means breaking the hearts of the very people who loved it in the first place? That's a tough one, and there's really no easy answer.